Happy Sunday and welcome back to Retake the Week. I'm not sure what I'm looking at there, but it's been another busy week. There's been a lot of events going on and a lot of important qualifiers, I think, for the people who pay attention to the lower levels of stuff. It's been a lot to watch with all the regular Tier 2 events. And a few other things in terms of roster moves to talk about, but overall, not that much controversy, not that much drama. But we do once again start with the important announcements. Members can join this channel. You'll get access to special behind-the-scenes content as well as episodes early, and you get access to the member Q&A. Bloody hell, I forget my own bloody perks.
Today T leaked his nudes on the membership page, so you just know you have to get that one.
It's quite the sight. So become a member. It's like $2, I think, a month. For now, we'll figure out a higher tier at some point and get more perks involved, but currently $2 gets you everything, so go nuts. Right, the first big event, the one we really need to talk about, is Yalla Compass, which has been one of the most annoying events to search for on Twitch, because if you didn't know it was Compass streaming it, and you searched Yalla like me, you ended up with a bunch of stuff that had nothing to do with Counter-Strike. But overall, it's been a really fascinating event. I think we've seen a lot of teams we wanted to see tested and like play on LAN and see together for the first time in person showed up and pretty much delivered. Most notably, and the one I want to talk about the most, though, is the Mongols, who just won that Mesa Nomadic event, came over here and faced, this should be tough for opposition, but still delivered. I mean, they won all their best of ones in the groups except against Astralis, once they'd already qualified. They then went through the playoffs and then beat Astralis in a full BO3. So BO1 avenged, all good. An absolutely insane BO3, by the way. Anyone who watched that game will know that was one of the better games of the event. And they're now lined up to play the grand final. So I've been really impressed with them. I think this is the promise that we've always seen. And that's always a frustrating thing when you're watching a tier 2 like team climb their way up. It's like, this is the potential. This player could do this, could do. You rarely get all the pieces to deliver. It feels like at this event we really have seen that. Like 910 is fully delivering on his promise, and the rest of the players are playing excellent Counter-Strike as well. I think Senzu's had some amazing games, but also we've seen bursts of brilliance from guys like Mazinho, and Blitz has been his usual self, so really big event for them.
Huge event. They have the potential to make it back-to-back LAN victories, or LAN trophies even, today. So that's huge for this team. Like, it's everyone's talking about this team for a very good reason. It is this sort of not even what do you call it? Reinvigoration of the Asian scene. This revival of the Asian scene, because it wasn't alive to begin with. So, welcome Asia to the world of Counter-Strike. Big event, huge players. Everyone's talking about 910, and I think, I mean, we were going to touch upon this eventually at some point. By the way, he's the big guy at this event.
He is.
I remember not very long ago when Nero did the like over underperforming players in the article with target rating, and I remember 910 was one of the more underperforming oppers in tier 1 events. Like, he was Nikoros tiers of underperforming, and I think for like 2 or 3 events straight now he has gone big. Like, he's gone proper big. He was one of the top players for the Nomadic Masters thing. Like he's just sort of flicked the switch, and now he's a great opper, and that's cool for someone who was like certifiably the biggest underperformer in tier 1 before then. So huge turnaround. I mean, they're making quite a lot of happen, even if like maybe like players like Techno and Blitz, they're not even like, this is what you'd expect from a normal team, is that you have some players being huge, some players maybe less so, taking more of the back seat. Because before, I feel like we've always just seen like everyone on the Mongols just goes hard, but now there's more like this. I think maybe they're starting to build some more structure. Maybe I'm wrong about that. Either way, they're playing a great game. And the final later today is going to be fucking awesome for several reasons. But
the other reason being the NIP debut. This is the first time we've seen them on LAN. We've seen a fair bit of them online, I think, for those of us who actually watch that kind of CS. But seeing them on LAN has been quite the revelation. I mean, I've been impressed. Well, firstly, I knew that certain parts of this roster were going to be good. Like, I knew Maxter was going to be an excellent rifler. I knew r1nkle had talent. I didn't quite have him being this good immediately, but I had him pretty far up there in terms of actual talent level. And we all know that Rez has been a guy who technically has the tools to be a really good rifler, but who just seems to forget them at home at every other event. He just shows up without them. So to see those three core pieces really turn up here, and then Alex and Isaac forming a really solid base beneath them, I think it's been amazing. I mean, we're not going to get 1.12 ratings out of Alex. Bigger events, you're not going to be able to rely on that, I don't think. But in terms of that top three, like really smashing it home, I think we could probably look forward to a bit more of that, and especially the Maxter r1nkle duo. I thought they'd be good. I didn't think they'd be this good. So it's been an amazing event for NIP, like debuting this fresh, mostly very young roster.
I think going piece for piece, I'm going to talk about r1nkle more later, but I think going piece for piece, I think Isaac has provided that sort of solid floor, like you said. I think Alex has shown something that some other players some other IGLs in tier 1 just really can't do. Like, he's not the Hampus player where like his job is to be performing constantly, but he does like already on this NIP rosters fairly often. He is one of the players up at front, like up in the front, and like that's something you pretty much never see out of Hooksy. Like, it's a miracle when Hooksy is top fragging a game, but he's got a couple of games where like he is the guy leading the team from the front, and that's like, it's cool to have that ability like in your backpack, just to pull out occasionally. So that's cool from him. I think Rez has, I mean, if he can sustain this, that's cool. But Rez has definitely like, he's played a very, very, very good event so far, which is what we know that he can do. And now he's maybe this stems from finally having comfortable roles. Like, everyone says that Rez has been moving around so much in different positions over the years, which definitely contributes to his inconsistency. Let's be honest. Something I think is cool is Maxter as well, just to finish him off. One of my small concerns was that Maxter would sort of drown here, because I always thought that like out of the Young Ninjas roster he came from, with which eventually became Medisport, I thought he was sort of the guy who might need some more time to bake in tier 2, and I thought maybe it's a bit early for him to step up. But I'm really happy that he hasn't drowned in this scene. Like, consistently, he is one of the top players for NIP, and I think he looks really calm. Like, he looks really calm in this like top level setting. Like, Yalla isn't the biggest event, but like, even if he's on a top team, he looks really calm, and he looks really at peace with like, I'm here, I'm gonna do my best, and he is doing his best. He's doing a great job.
Yeah, I think something though, I'm going to be negative for a second because I feel like it. Just gonna throw in doubts, seed some discord. One thing that I don't think is very sustainable is in terms of r1nkle's performance. He's currently leading the team in T-side opening attempts, which, if I'm watching a JW demo in 2013, I'm thinking, yeah, of course, normal, it's normal. Who doesn't? Well, an AWPer in 2024 doesn't do this. Like, it's very anti-meta, and it does make me worried that maybe if, once he faces teams that are not going to allow him to just wreck them with AWP peaks, or if he's leading with a rifle even, and someone else has to start taking over and they're not winning those fights, potentially we could see them get stuck in the mud a little bit. But realistically, if it's going to work like this, if he's going to drop a 1.3 rating and take 30% attempts on T side, go for it.
Yeah.
It's going to be really fun to watch, even if it is a little chaotic, a little bit contrarian in terms of what we expect players to do.
I'm looking at the different maps now, and they've played a lot of Ancient in this event so far. They played 4 maps, and a lot of it is from there. So I wonder if maybe that's sort of been their
T-side go-to.
Yeah, their T-side go-to on Ancient, and maybe that's why he's so high, because they haven't really played the other maps as much. They played Nuke twice, Anubis once. So I think maybe it might just be like this one map which sort of carries that stat, like this one.
I've checked the numbers.
Oh yeah, no, he's high on the others as well, but
no, but like his T-side Ancient opening numbers are stupid. Like 0.21 just kills.
Yeah,
like he is definitely the linchpin to their Ancient T-side. That's, oh my god,
that's true.
Please play that map at the grand final. That'd be so cool.
He's high on the other maps as well, but I think that on those maps it's a bit too small of a sample size to see how what their setup actually looks like. So maybe this is more like this is the ancient setup. We're gonna carry the ancient setup because that's what we've been working on so much for over this break they've had. And later on, other setups are going to emerge where like r1nkle maybe takes a bit of a different role, more in line with the meta perhaps. Oh yeah, they played Vertigo twice as well. But yeah, that's they're doing great so far. I'm looking forward to this final. Let's see what happens.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I'll be rooting for Mongols just because I've been so invested in their story. I'm sure you'll be rooting for NIP because
I
they are
think there's
still
a
kind of Swedish.
I think there's a part of everyone who, or most people at least, who would be sort of happy no matter who comes out winning out of this. Because either way, everyone's happy for Mongols if they win back-to-back land titles, and I think a lot of people would feel it was a bit refreshing or like good for these players to get a good land debut if NIP wins. So I think there's an element of good no matter who wins this final, which is something I like. I like having a final where I can sort of a small part of me roots for both teams.
Fair enough. Okay. So I'm going to close up Yalla by asking you to answer one of the three questions that I've put in the notes. I've just going to let you pick which one you think is the most interesting to you.
Mm-hmm.
So there are some question marks surrounding the other teams, so I've put three of them in there. Take your pick. Let me know what you think.
Ooh, yeah, I think complexity should make changes. I think this is something we've been talking about for weeks. I thought they were going to come after Dallas. I thought there was going to be some sort of announcement here. I have no idea what the contract situation for Halzerk is. I heard his contract was ending, and then he just seems to keep going. I think they need to do something. I have no fucking idea what. The only thing I know is that it's not going to be a Liege. Everyone was shit here. Like everyone was trash at this event except for Elish. So what do you do? Fuck if I know. There's M80 players. Good luck with that. There's wildcard players. Sure. Sort of looking at a different project there. You could just stop being North American. Hello, Jason Lake. I know you get summoned every time you mention North America, and I know you're not going to do that. So fucking what the fuck do you do? Disband. Yeah, it's the HLTV forums fix minus disband. Just disband. Yeah.
Yeah, because if you think about it, if you look at the players who, I'm just looking at the ESL Challenger League like results and stats. I can pick apart like players from M80, players from Wildcard that I think I could immediately slot in, and I'm not
Yep.
guaranteeing I'm better, but I'm at least giving myself a chance to improve. The problem is though, it's not like there isn't any talent on this team outside of Elige. I think, well, the change I've been trying to call for a long time was JTTC goodbye and try again with someone else. Like bring in a new system, see if that some fresh ideas help. But I also think maybe the other solution is find someone with some balls. Like I feel this might be a completely nonsensical like statement and an attack on character that just isn't warranted. But I feel like Floppy and Grim just don't have it. Like just in terms of turning up, delivering, being like there, like having that presence, just not really for them. Like if everything's great and everything's flowing and the team's feeling hyped, yay, they come along, but so often they just don't deliver to their supposed level. Maybe they are just mentally not there, not fit for the highest level, and you need to take a risk with someone who's got maybe delusional self confidence. Like just take a shot on someone.
There is an element here which I think is worth mentioning once again with regard to the major. They are now under the pressure that they can't make too many changes because even if they change just one or two players, I think they fall out of the RMR invite contention, and that's knowing how the big NA teams normally do when they're trying to play North American qualifiers. I wonder if that's a risk they don't really want to take. So I wonder if they're just going to end up sticking with this roster until the Shanghai circuit is over. But
Maybe it'd be to their
yeah,
detriment, but they probably will.
they're still going to make the RMR, and they're still going to. So at that point, they're going to be probably going to be invited to the RMR, and at that point, they're going to stay. They're going to keep this exact roster until November at the like at the earliest. So
Yeah.
yeah, let's something
Hmm.
worth thinking about. I think they should make changes. I don't know what the fuck they even could make. I don't know. I don't know what finances they have now. They just left the big what is it, Game Square? They just left
Yeah,
Game Square.
Jason Lake just bought them out of it, so they don't. I
Yeah.
don't think there's a lot of capital lying around. That's something that's come up in discussions a lot in terms of who they can actually go and sign,
Mm.
because yes, it's all well and good saying you could take Jaber, you could try and poach Malbs, but you need money to
Yeah,
go poaching. It's not a cheap hobby, so
yeah. I mean, you're looking at M80. They're probably going to hold a pretty like they're probably gonna they're a decent sized org. I think they're gonna keep their players like pretty close to the chest. Any Brazilian player is probably like any decent Brazilian player is probably off the table just because of
yeah.
the money that would have to be involved. I mean, there's a lot of Brazilian good teams right now. You could probably pick some pieces from here if you had unlimited cash, but you are not paying a
Yeah,
$300,000 buyout for decency if you're complexity. So like
that's more the
it's
problem. Yeah, it's the price you have to pay to get these guys.
yeah. So then you end up with like wild card nouns, and then you're like, well, is fucking Carson? Is he really gonna revitalize this complexity team?
Yeah.
No, you're like, yeah.
Are we
Who the
going to
fuck?
take a risk on Lake? Like, I know
Yeah,
who these guys are. Nobody
yeah,
else does.
yeah. Sign NBG 12, and yeah.
No, I
At least
mean,
then, you have an excuse for not playing anything because he's banned.
oh god, yeah, he comes with a hard drive too. But I mean, there's even players on NRG I think could make a comeback. Like you could take a risk on.
Mm,
Like I've been a fan of Hex T for a while. Like
mm.
Hexed ever since he was on Evil Geniuses and he was the only functional member. I've believed he could do something bigger and better in the scene. But then you have to try and get NRG to let go of him. Uh,
Yeah, that's also a pretty big, like decent sized org. It's probably a
yeah.
buyout there.
So no, unless
Fairly fresh
unless
contracts as well.
yeah, unless Dallas Complexity magically gets some more money from somewhere, I don't think they're
Mm,
going to make big changes if they make any.
mm.
Maybe they find a budget deal. Like if you cut TCJT, go get Synopsy, like off of Guild Eagles, drop Holzerk, take GXX in, like something like that. Like these guys are going to be my go-to glue fixed, like smash into teams for a while now.
Yeah,
The Guild Eagles players, because I doubt they stick together, but I think they're going to be very useful for certain teams.
it makes sense. It makes sense.
Yeah. Well, on the topic, quickly, let's talk about this as well of ECL, because ECL happened. We now have basically all the qualifiers for that settled in terms of who's going to be qualifying for Pro League. And that's a big part of the Tier 2 calendar. It's weird. Some teams, this is just a bit of a tangent, but some teams do not do well in Challenger, but will smash the hell out of online tournaments and vice versa. Like you'll see teams that, like Koi, never play online Tier 2 events. Like basically never. But they're in ECL every season. They do really well a lot of the time. Like this season, they have qualified for Pro League. They finished in first, like they won the upper bracket entirely. And you just look through the teams, you're like, man, sometimes I watch you guys play against the onliners, against like Team Space, and you'll get dicked. But then in Challenger League, you're able to make deep runs. It's a frustrating dichotomy because I know there's more teams that could play potentially better Counter-Strike into bigger matchups, but Challenger League's just the most important part of this whole process.
Mm. Yep. So we have a couple of teams coming through. We have M80, Atox, Rooster, Koi, FlyQuest, and Wildcard. Also, Sangle are missing from this list, but Sangle also made it through as of last night.
Yes, they are one I forgot. Yeah,
And Red Canids as well. Not really worth talking
yeah,
about, but
I
they're there.
cut them just because they qualified this on the 6th. I thought it was a while ago.
Yeah, who cares, really? There's so yeah, we have some decent teams coming through. I'm personally very excited about Sangle coming through. I think they made a great lower bracket run because they finished third in their group, and then they made it through the medium seed group, which is like if you make it through here, you go to the lower bracket, like just straight into the lower bracket. And they made that run happen. They beat 9Pandas, they beat Saw, they beat 3D Max, they beat Aurora. Had a very close series against Sinners last night, which qualified them, and they're set to play the final against Koi. This is a great run from this team. I think like 9Pandas, sure they had literally just added Chalfie, but that's still a big team. I think that's still a big team to beat for Sangle. Saw definitely. I know they spoke about it. They thought it was they thought this was a huge moment for them. This was a huge win for them to beat Saw, and I could see that. And then again, like 3D Max, Aurora, these are teams that have attended big events recently. Like they are big teams, and taking those caps is pretty fucking good. So Yeah, it's been great from this team. I think everyone here, this Sangal roster, I think all of the players are like they're doing a really really good job. Like a lot of people will be talking about Xfloud and Jota, but I think LNZ deserves a lot of credit for like how quickly he sort of made this roster work. Same thing for Jumpy, the coach, because it wasn't too long ago they swapped Saucil and Ganginho for Samey and Jota. So like yeah, a youngster as well. I think as someone who just came out of nowhere and jumped into the Sangal team after playing nothing but Norwegian play for some reason, he shows up when it matters. Like he shows up in the big games, and that's pretty cool for like a fairly unknown 19-year-old player. And it's just a very exciting time to watch Sangal play Counter Strike, and I'm happy we're going to see it back on LAN. It's the return to Tier 1 LAN since LNZ played the Stockholm Major. It's and Jumpy, of course, being coach of Fnatic for a number of years, and North as well. Like it's back to the old times. So they did a great job. But yeah, briefly touching on the others, Rooster and FlyQuest. I mean, yeah, who else was going to make it out of Australia at the moment? Koi, as you said, I think you spoke about this in the past as well. Is that Koi, which was previously Movistar Riders, they never really play anything in Tier 2 except when it matters for Tier 1 qualification.
Literally, yeah.
And that's how they sort of built their name, by making good runs in Tier 1 events. And that's why we got players like Alex, Sunpius, Martinez, like floating around in the Tier 1 scene. Ex Movistar players. So yeah, Atox as well. We talked about Mongols before. I think Atox also have been racking up a bunch of results. Coming in as this maybe the second or third best Asian team at the moment. Lib
Yeah,
Vision, not to be understated.
they're probably like second or third best in Mongolia prior to this run. Like
Mm,
they weren't actually that big a deal, but no,
yeah.
they had a good run here. But it's an event without Mongols. They didn't face like Tai Lu. It's not the craziest run, but it's a good thing that we're going to see them on LAN again, because I want to watch Annihilation play.
Mm,
I'm been a kind of a distant fan of Dobu as well for a little bit now, so it'll be nice to see these guys come and compete. Like I'm not too sure about the depth of the roster in terms of quality of player.
mm.
Like Cabal, Mick, or MIQ, and Zesta, like they're people. They exist. Like in the Mongolian scene, and like they're there, and they have been for a while. But I just never paid much attention to them. But
Yeah.
finally, they've done something that requires it, and hopefully they can actually deliver, because there is some talent here. But no, I don't have too many hopes for a lot of these rosters actually in Pro League. But I think maybe like we'll get to see M80 and Wildcard compete. It'll be nice to see their level. And I think, given enough chances, FlyQuest could make another dangerous run, like another scary run. They're not actually going to be a threat to go deep, but they can make some tier 1 teams piss their pampers, you know.
Looking at who came from ECL in the past EPL, which we had fairly recently, it was Mongols, 3D Max, it was M80, like these teams who actually made good runs that we kept an eye on, and
You said 3D Max. I'm sorry.
they made top 12.
I know, but I
Just
also
saying.
watched the games and saw who they beat.
Yeah, yeah, but like they
I
you
also
can
watched the event.
whether it be because they are actually decent teams in disguise, or whether it be because the EPL format is fucked, you can make a pretty good impression at
That
EPL coming through ECL. So yeah, it's gonna be cool to see some of these teams as well, and the guys who got knocked out along the way. Some of the European teams are playing for one final EPL spot as well. I think it's worth mentioning. So if you are
Ooh, yeah.
if you're a fan of Vision or Aurora or Monty or 3D Max, they still have a shot, but good luck.
I mean, Monty would be good.
Yeah,
That'd be
it's
really
a
fun to see them.
it's a best of one round robin bracket
Of course,
uh,
pure chaos and nonsense. Gotta
of
love it.
8 teams, 2 of which just oh right no 10 teams, but 2 of them are playing in play. Or what the fuck is this? Never mind. I don't know. I don't know what the fuck this is.
Okay, we'll
Yeah,
leave it at that then, because
yeah,
yeah, ESL's formats can sometimes be a little frustrating,
yes.
just to put it politely. Right. Now, this is sort of the biggest news. It's not really that big a news, but I just thought it'd be an interesting topic for us to have. This is going to be like a two-man Dr. Duck's diagnosis sort of thing, where we're going to look at a team who've decided to launch a rebuild. So they're going to do it. Their first key player, their core piece, is Smooya. So this is already going to be one hell of a conversation.
Yep.
But Into the Breach have launched a rebuild. Into the Breach, of course, the last standing bastion of UKCS, who have signed the only relevant UKCS player in terms of wider popularity, at least. Not in terms of actual like level of play, because he hasn't been on a top team in a little while. But he's already played briefly with Into the Breach before. Now he's back there. They've made some hints as to who he's going to be playing with, in terms of spamming a bunch of flags. Not 5 flags like to give it away, but like just literally all the flags. Like, take a guess. So we're going to do that. We're going to take a guess. Now, I'm just going to lead this off with my most realistic, in my mind, signing is to pick up 3 Guild Eagles players. And I'm thinking Synopsy, Juan Flatro, Rigon. Quite simply, you get 3 players, you pick up all of their ranking points, and then you find a 5th from there. I think it'd be that simple, honestly, potentially. But no, but there's plenty of options. Who have you had your eye on in terms of potentially building around Smooya?
If I'm just briefly talking about Smooya, I thought it was so funny yesterday because someone linked me a clip when he was watching, like from his stream, he was watching something out of ESL Impact with TSM Shimmer, and it was so fucking funny because he was like watching one of those like comms clips where they recorded the comms of the team, and for the record, TSM have at least one, I think they have several trans women on their team, which are allowed to play in ESL Impact League. Surprise, surprise. And he was just like, he watched this clip and he was like, wait, guys, what did I just hear? And then he's like this, and then he's like, that's the voice of a man! He's pretending! And then I was like, holy fucking shit, this guy's never getting signed. And I swear, less than an hour later, he was announced for Into the Breach. So I just thought that was really funny. Anyway, if so, like considering what they did to Neofrag, send that clip to ITB CEO. He's gone, and this rebuild is over. I'm telling you.
Yeah, true. Like,
yeah,
if they are going to decide that arbitrary societal standards are going to dictate who they sign and who they don't.
Yeah. So
he did it in public as well.
Everything they said about like, oh, we don't like the knowledge, we don't like the language that Neofrag was using, and then they go and sign fucking Smooya. Like, what the fuck is this? Everything of that's just gone. Like everything they said. So
he didn't drop a slur, so I guess he gets to avoid that immediate rejection from society.
But the guy's just like he's just beating the next hurdle after the next. Like slur is the next one, I swear. So
he is the greatest PR case study. Like everything you shouldn't do if you want to be a public figure who's employable.
Oh my fuck! All right, never mind. This is the rebuild. So for those who don't know, Smooya posted a bait tweet, which was four UK flags and 1 Polish flags, and then a Canadian flag, like at the bottom. And everyone was like, "He's replacing Crucial for sure. He's going to Endpoint because like that was the tease." And then ITB afterwards just said that was bait, by the way. So like, but in theory, you could have built that roster on ITB as well. But anyway, yeah, okay. So if I'm guessing players, I like your idea of signing the BNE players. I think they're going to be big commodities. I think for a lot of teams. I think a lot of the players are pretty good. So, and I know Smooya likes all of them. Like these are all FPL guys, so he's definitely in their wheelhouse. I think we should be reminded that Rallen is still sitting on ITB's bench, and I think he would be a decent player to pick up. I think you can rely on him doing a decent job in the circuit that they're going to be. If you're just looking for a 5th, you might as well take the guy already employed by you, if he's willing to come. But I think there's also a lot more players that you are really worth looking at here. I think there's a lot of tier 2 players available right now, so it's hard to piece together a roster. I mean, I'm just going to look at these flags.
Like there's one flag there's only one real option. They've baited a Boros pickup, which I don't think happens if you sign the BNE core, because then the team makes 0 fucking sense, but role-wise. But that's one thing they're throwing out there. So if they're not going the BNE route, you could pick up Boros. There's some Germans probably available that are not terrible. Like there's maybe a team there.
They put a Belgian flag, and you're gonna love this. I think Kios is absolutely an option for them. Just
Yeah, true. They're not trying to win, so nuts. Like,
yeah, I mean, for them, he probably looks like a pretty decent player. Like, not playstyle wise, but like he's got a lot of experience. He's bringing a lot to the table. For them, I'm not sure in practice,
yeah, I
but
mean, he's
for them, from their
not an
perspective, he's probably a
IGL,
good way.
sub 0.6 KPR. I mean, what more could you want from a rifler?
Yeah, perfect. Um, there's an Aussie flag here. Could they be looking at like Savage? Someone said JKS, but
Yeah,
Jesus Christ, stop. But I think Savage.
JKS said no to bleed. He's not saying yes to ITB.
Yeah, yeah.
No, they're just going to sign Netic, guys. They're going to get Netic out of Rooster.
Yeah, perfect, perfect.
That's crazier.
There's a French flag. Can you name any French guys who could go for
I can name
ITB?
hundreds of thousands of French people. That's not the question though. I mean, they could be looking at like guys like Gravity, like trying to steal someone off of 3D Max because they're not exactly a huge org.
How about Nate Yu from Mouse NXT? Could they get him? Do you think?
He's good, but he's very young, and he's also on the best academy in the world. Why would
Yep.
he want to go? Why would they let him go? And could they even afford him? Like that's the
Yeah.
combination of questions.
Yeah.
So I don't know about them actually being able to acquire Netu.
Speaking of being able to acquire, you also mentioned D-Hop, who's on a fresh ends contract.
Yeah, that's going to be awkward as hell. But he's benched, so maybe they're willing to let him go on a discount, like on a bargain. I don't even know if that's a great signing at this point. Like, if he's not playing a very specific role under Snappy, we've not seen him be a particularly great player, so maybe not.
Considering the players they picked up in the past, I think he's absolutely in their interest. Like, because they pick up players like Kicker, they pick up players like Mizuta. Like, they love these X tier 1 players.
Random crap, yeah. Like,
anyone on a tier 1 team who's benched is an ITB player within a couple of months. True. Yeah,
it's difficult to realistically talk about this because anyone who's benched is an option by their standards.
Yeah, perfect. So I think that also Kios. Like Kios is an option then. So yeah.
Yeah, I was hoping that Dutch flag was actually a Luxembourg flag because then I could be like, oh, that's pretty obviously a Marek's hint. Like, you know, that'd be an interesting signing potentially.
I'd like that.
It's clearly it's a Dutch flag. I hovered it. They use the Dutch emoji. Some of the Dutch players, unless you're hinting at Crucial or Fascia, I don't know who it's going to be. Yeah. So in 2024, I think it's Fascia or Crucial.
Yeah.
If we're building a cool hipster lineup in 2019,
oh my,
maybe.
What if they get Doc together with Smooya? Doc the FPL god.
If they're just going to troll, then go nuts. Go nuts. Yeah. Why not? Just sign Doc. Sign Kios.
Perfect. I love this.
I wouldn't be down for that. I mean, isn't he
Scream
still on
come
Twisted
back?
Minds? Yeah, he is.
I mean, Nevera is back. Could Scream come back?
I don't want him to. He could.
I'd like it.
It'd be funny. It'd be good for the viewership, and I think certain new. I'm not allowed to say the version that I want to say. Newbies haven't ever watched or understood like Scream memes. Like they've heard, they know me for my one taps, but they haven't seen the one taps. They haven't seen a true god amongst men unleashing the power of the least efficient way of playing Counter-Strike. So
yeah,
that could be fun. But again, that's more marketing stuff. Like, are they trying to build a team that wins, or are they trying to build a stream team? Because if they're building a stream team, they could probably do a really good job with this combination of flags.
They're already halfway there. So yeah, with Smooya.
No, I think as we've sat there hypothesizing, I thought we'd get like real rosters come to mind. Based on the flags and who they've signed in the past, I'm feeling less and less confident about who the earth is even going to end up on this roster.
Yeah.
And if it's even going to be a viable roster. Like, there'll be 5 players. Beyond that, I couldn't tell you much more.
Yep. Exactly.
All right, let's just jump onto the Eternal Shuffle then. Because the ITB Rebuild may be beyond us at this point. We'll see who gets announced next. Yep. All right, Eternal Shuffle. We lead off with the 9 Pandas / VP. I'm going to bundle them together. Changes. So, 9 Pandas coach Zoma has been acquired by Virtus Pro to replace Dastan. And in response, 9 Pandas have acquired Shalfi and Fierce. So, Shalfi has seized out of his spot as IGL. And Fierce comes into coach. Both these guys from Forza, I believe.
Yep.
So, that's been a big shift. I think the most important part of this, or the most interesting part, is the VP side, though, isn't it? Surely, like, no one's too bothered about 9 Pandas making this change.
I think it's a cool change from Nine Pandas, but I mean VP is a big part of it. We talked about Dastan a couple of times, and then he got replaced, and then now they have Zoma, who was always rumored to join. I think Zoma's been around for a hell of a long time in Counter-Strike. He's been here for over 20 years at this point. He was a 1.6 player back in the way early days. So it's cool. I think he brings a lot of experience. I think he was probably the best coach
He
option
was
in
on
Russia.
M19.
Yeah, he was on M19.
Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah.
Sorry. Anyway.
I think I think he was just the best coach option in Russia right now for VP to pick up. Like I don't know if they've thought about this in any big regard, like if he has experience with any of the players. I'm not sure. Like I said, he's been around for a long time, so he probably knows everyone. But I mean, he's never really coached a good team in CS:GO or CS2, other than this what eventually ended up being the Nine Pandas team, which started out as Cyber Legacy. Oh yeah, okay. These are the guys that beat Navi. Yeah, this is where we first started thinking about glowing and Claxton ceased again. Um, yeah, he hasn't really done anything in CS:GO for that matter. So I think aside from this team, so I wonder if he was just the best coach option or if there's any thought behind this. But it's a cool move. I think honestly, even cooler. Like you say, probably people aren't too bothered. I think the cooler move here is what Nine Pandas have done, which is pick up Shelfie, who we knew someone was going to pick up. People were saying he was like
Yeah, I mean, the
in.
big news really is VP trying to retool. That's why I referred to it. I mean, sure, it is an interesting little addition, but the big news is Virtus Pro. They are the headline. They are the big team with Electronic, with Jame, with Flit. Like,
Mm,
they are the team that we expected to be good. Like,
yeah,
they're the one making the big moves. But no, I do agree. There is something to say about Shalfie in terms of a young up and coming IGL.
we knew someone was going to pick him up. Some people said Cloud9 might pick him up. Nine Pandas. Let's not forget, they are a team that made the Copenhagen Major for all intents and purposes. But then couldn't go because of visa issues. But like they played well enough to earn their spot there. So it's a team that I think we need to look out for. I think it is that lower top 30 team which can occasionally strike upwards. And booting Seized, who is past his expiration date. Let's be real. For someone who can frag, someone who has been an IGL for some time now, someone who like is pretty proven to play a good game in similar level teams. It's something to look at. I think it's definitely something to keep an eye on. So yeah, as for VP, I don't know how much this changes. Maybe they've sort of just realized that the James Dustin system has been kind of found out. It doesn't really work as consistently as it did when it was a gimmick. Like maybe it's this sort of Furia kind of thing where like the system has gotten found so system is just countered, and now they want bigger brains to come in and make a more sustainable system to solidify them in tier one. And Zoma might be part of that, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I presented a very extensive argument in favor of the Zoma edition as to why it actually makes Virtus Pro super OP and blah blah blah. It was a whole thing on the double swing. If
Mm.
you want to see that, go to the double swing. The timestamp will be Kingt picks Virtus Pro. I basically, yeah, made a case for it. I think there's reasons this will work because
Mm.
truly a change system was needed if you wanted to make it work with Electronic. Like, you signed him,
Mm.
you want to make it work, surely. So you do have to make some changes. You can't play this weird passive style. You kind of have to be able to emphasize a very aggressive rifler, and that is exactly what Zoma did in
Mm.
Nine Pandas. Like, their win condition, even if his stats don't look on average that much better than everyone else's, when they faced real opposition and actually posed a threat is when Dealer Des was their main focal point. And this is when they made big events, won like the huge qualifiers to make it to these events. Dealer Des was the focal point. So I think he's the right choice in terms of, at least on paper, matching up the styles of what they need. But I don't know. We'll have to see it in practice before we can actually truly make judgment on it.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's a bit of a question mark for now. Next up, the Revenant, Revenant, have announced their team, which it's been rumored for a little while, but now it's official. They have a roster of NBK, Reiko, Nivera, Lonex, and Adex, or Adex. it's a team I've shared some excitement for. Tweeted about it, got some gibberish responses as you do when a tweet blows up a little bit. But I'm mostly excited for these young guys they've brought in, and honestly, seeing some of these other guys get another chance because r1nkle on bleed, it didn't quite work out despite their results not being that bad with him. He ended up getting cut. IDEX showed us some really cool, like a really cool level and style of play in Gucci Academy. But then on other teams, like he had brief stints with other teams, and it wasn't quite as impactful for him. Like he still played fine, it just wasn't the gut busting nut job shit we saw in Gucci Academy. And Reiko, obviously, he went toe to toe with Xantares on LAN. Need I say any more? I've been preaching for this guy since like Neo and Taz were playing on Honoris with him. That's how long I've been following Reiko. And finally, he's escaped Poland because they were never going to promote him. He has reached the international scene and can finally get another chance.
I wonder. We shouldn't judge character off of announcement videos, but the way he was acting during that announcement video, I wonder if like him not moving up is just him being the Counter-Strike player who is just, I'm just here to play Counter-Strike. Please don't put a camera in front of me. like I wonder if he's just
Yeah,
if
I'm
he
sure
just
acting
never.
in a second language isn't very natural to most people.
Yeah, no, I just mean like I wonder if he's sort of failed to market himself, because anytime I talk about Reiko, I refer to you, and a lot of people are like, who the fuck is Reiko? I've never heard of Reiko. I've literally never seen Reiko play a game of CS. And I'm like, how the fuck have you not seen Reiko play a game of CS? He's been hard stuck in tier 2, just dominating everything for however many years now. So I always but nobody knows about him. Like literally nobody fucking knows about him. So I wonder if at that point it's just like he's just failed to market himself, and now he's probably approaching his prime, or maybe even the end of his prime. But no,
Yeah, he's not that old.
he's 24 or something, right?
He's 24. Like, not the end of
Yeah,
his prime by any means.
statistically it's 22 to 24.
Meh.
Per an
I'll
HLTV article, I have sources. Per an HLTV article. But yeah, no, for real. Like, that age is just a number. In this sense, not in any other context. This is it's a good team. I talked about this team as well. It's gotten grouped with the leaks that we've had, because this has been pretty well known for a long time.
Yeah.
With the leaks we've had, it's sort of been grouped together with 9 and Project G and this 5W roster that just came out of nowhere as like, oh, yet another tier 2 roster that's going to do nothing, OG Academy, like this sort of thing. And it's, I think that's a little bit unwarranted. I think this team, unlike those other teams, which are lacking in some obvious context, like 5W lack proper leadership and tier 1 experience. 9 have a lot of tier 1 experience, but none of it is going to be able to move upwards. Like pretty much everything hinges on sound, how good he can actually develop. You have all of the, and Project G is just ass, sorry, except for Era. So then it's just, unlike them, this team has 4 players. I think both Reiko and r1nkle are just waiting to have that like big bottle rocket moment where they've just been building up over years at this point, and I think at some point it's just gonna take off. And this team could be that team. The next team could be that team. Whatever. At some point, I think they're gonna be good players. I think Adex is great, and I think NBK deserves a lot of respect. And I think he's exactly the kind of player who I think can guide this team to being pretty decent. And then of course Nivera. I think a lot of success.
The question mark, yeah.
Yeah, I think a lot of success hinges on Nivera, but the way the rest of this roster looks, he's also not exactly the be all end all for this core. Like, it's not going to be like, oh, Nivera didn't play a good enough game, we have to shut down the project. It's more like, Nivera didn't play a good enough game, we can replace him with another player. Like, this is, I think Nivera has proven he can play a good game. It was years ago, but he definitely could. He's sort of in this weird Plopsky zone where he is fairly young. He's only 22, but he still has a lot of experience. Even at that age, because he was in tier 1 at what would have been 18 or something. Like, it's interesting. It's definitely interesting to see how this team is going to develop. But they have players who can definitely move upwards. in terms of skill level. And they have experience, which is going to help them get there. So, yeah, it's going to be cool.
Yeah, looking forward to it. We'll see how it goes out. I'm rooting for them. I hope it works out. But next, we have Eyeballers cutting Sapek, which is something you've put on here, and that I don't have too many thoughts on. I mean, the Eyeballers roster frustrated me for a long time because they're just a bunch of dudes who don't stand out individually, and the team occasionally wins games, but never massive things, never anything I'm really following. So they're just perennially there, and we talk about them, but I never have too strong an opinion either way at the end of the day. So the Sapek guy, he had, I mean, before this Eyeballers stint, or even early on in the early Eyeballers days when they just formed under Flusher JW, like that whole idea, he impressed me at times. But over the course of like a year or two, it's just become just grayed out in terms of my interest in him, the team, and everything else involved in this project. So I'm sure you have more to say about him in terms of playstyle, availability, or where you'd think he'd actually end up.
It's an interesting cut. I think basically what the team said is that it was just time. They've been there for both him and Shine, who both got released at the same time. They had expiring contracts. They've been there for 2 years. Hasn't really worked out. It just makes sense for both parties to sort of move on from this. So in that sense, you know, it's just a move that kind of makes sense. I think either Sapik or Pepsor had to go from this team, and I think if you just look at the all-time stats for Eyeballers, I mean everyone here looks pretty trash, but they also have a fuck ton of maps, and I know both Pepsor and Sapik, I think really have this problem with consistency because if you took the time to do the actual statistic analysis to look at the variance that this team can have in terms of like peaks and valleys, it's so crazy. Like it all adds up to a 1.03. On peaks, Sapik and Pepsor can both single-handedly win games for Eyeballers, and that's sort of when they win games, it's because one of those two or JW went huge. But then they also just have pretty shit periods where they don't win anything because those players aren't doing anything. So at this point, it took 2 years. It didn't get fixed. It makes sense to cut him. I think one of the two had to get cut, and even if Pepsor might have performed slightly worse, I think it makes sense. Sapik is the one to leave. He was the one on the expiring contract, and Pepsor, I think, has a bit longer on his deal. I think it's interesting because I think both Eyeballers and Metasport are now looking at the same group of players to hire for their next team because Sapik and ZTR, in my opinion, play sort of similar spots. We're looking at like an aggressive rifler, a bit of an entry fragger perhaps, and at that point you're looking at Spook or Bob XD, both of them free. Eyeballers, they've also sort of been making moves trending, upwards in age. Cutting Shine for Golden, for example, which is probably a move for the better in terms of leadership, but it's also a move that makes the team quite a bit older. So I could also see them picking up someone older to replace Sapik as well. I think if we're picking apart this Johnny Speeds team, I mean Licro's there. If you want to revamp the roles a bit, you could definitely look at like Chaucy. You could also look at someone like Rolf. I think could actually be a decent move. Some people have said that Susp might be the player they bought to be brought in. I think it's possible, but I think it's also a huge amount of money to pay for him if they are the ones who paid that buyout that we heard about. Even if they have just got investment, that investment isn't really sports related. In that sense, I think they are more looking to build Eyeballers as a brand. I think there could be interesting players coming out of Alliance at the end of the season. They are obviously staying. I don't know if they're making changes. I think they need to make some changes, and I think they are sticking it out because they have Jönköping coming up, which is obviously huge for them. So they don't want to make any changes at this point. But I think this roster has had 1 year. I think something has to be done. I don't know what. I don't know if anything is going to be done, but I want them to. At that point, we have some cool players who might get freed up. I think Sapik is an option for Medisport. I don't think they're going to pick him up. I'm sort of we're at the stage where we keep recycling players at this point in Sweden, which is not really a good thing. But there are also players that definitely are of interest to step up. I'm looking at someone like Poi, which is sort of an unknown name, but he is he's 17 years old and he's doing very well on Lil Mix whenever they play. I know a lot of teams have been interested in him, so I think that could be interesting. BQ is now freed up to play since Apex shut down their thing. BQ is someone I think also floated around a bit. We have Svedje Hed. He was previously with Eyeballers, but like there are players here that I think sort of get passed over a bit that I think could do something. And just to wrap this up, I think Eyeballers are gonna go for sort of a newer player. I hope they go for a bit of a newer name and try to make something new happen rather than picking up someone like, well, if they get Susp, I guess that would be kind of cool. But I would probably rather see a bit of a new name, try to get some more life into this team rather than just recycling the same players across these 3 teams. And yeah, could be cool.
Okay. Yeah, I think the Swedish scene does need new blood because,
Mm.
wow, I don't care about seeing fucking like Twist for the 100th time on a 16th different team. This time will work. No, it won't. But okay, cool, buddy. Keep trying.
Yeah.
But our final bit of news, I think, from the roster world is iNation have dropped their team, which is a shame just because iNation have been, like, in terms of Balkan or specifically a lot of times Serbian CS, have been really important, have brought through a lot of players. But essentially, they said because of the change to the major qualifier, we can't support a team. As we discussed, I think on the pre-show, so behind the scenes, they already seen this part. They weren't going to qualify anyway. So have they really been running their books on the potential of magically somehow making the major? Because they haven't made it the last couple times. So it's just a bit of a weird announcement for me in terms of the reasoning. But it's a shame just to see this team like sort of cease operations in Counter-Strike. Would have been cool to see them stay around, even if it did mean like releasing their players but promising to sign like younger like players, develop them, maybe keep like Emmy around on a budget, see if they could just min-max out of him and signing kids essentially out of the Balkans. But for now, all we know is they've dropped this team. They seem to be done with CS for now. Hopefully we can see them back, just 'cause they've been an iconic brand in our space.
Yeah, Nico was there. All of the old Balkan
Hunter
players
was there, Kassad's been there, Yanko's played there.
Yeah.
Every big name out of the region, pretty much.
Cool name, like a cool clan tag, if nothing else, for the Balkan scene. I mostly put this on here because I think this is, on paper, one of the stronger iNation rosters in a while. And it's cool. Maybe not like actually, but pound for pound, I think they have some players who can definitely find. They have been on better teams in the past, and I think they can find themselves onto better teams again. We're talking Dragon, Collins, Aidkit, Zikos, and Emmy. Emmy, probably one of the worst players in terms of individuals, but he has been in tier 1 a long time as either a coach or an IGL or an assistant coach or an analyst. Like, he has a lot of these perspectives that I think could be very valuable for whoever wants to use them. Collins, Dragon, they've done stuff. Dragon was there when they made the RMR, I think. Aidkit and Zikos, next to Kixen and Satsanito, probably the next best Macedonian players to do anything. Zikos sort of bouncing around this middle layer of tier 2 for a while now with like IKLA, Big Academy, Sprout for a bit of a stand-in stint. So there's could be cool. Someone might pick these players up, but they were worth a mention.
Yeah, so those guys available. Yeah, we'll see what comes of it. All right, let's move on to our final segment. Wow, we managed to get this one done sub an hour. That's going to be weird. I mean, if we do this in 6 minutes, yes.
Oh, let's go.
All right, prospects of the week. I'm going to lead off with my pick. He was just featured in his own episode of Prospects, and he just dominated the European, not the European, it's ECL. I see an E, I say Europe. Sorry, very biased here. The ESL Challenger League, the NA section of it, qualifying with wildcard. It's, of course, Jaber. Those of you who didn't pick up on it, it was pretty obvious. Yeah, this kid, if you want a full breakdown of his playstyle, go watch the Prospects episode. He had a great week, smashed some teams, and got his team through. I mean, the final best of 3, he drops like 80 frags or something silly. he's got a really polished like gameplay, like his style. 88 frags, man, God, I underplayed it. There were 2 overtimes involved, but he's one of the players that I think can save like some amount of NA. Like he can't save it entirely by himself. He's not like such an elite talent that he could carry a team to salvation. But he's a really, really interesting rifle prospect. Could play a couple of roles in the future. Like I pointed out in the prospects, there is some question marks about what his role, like at a higher level, would be. Just because of the way he's used in Wildcard can be a bit varied, a bit random sometimes. It feels like it's just if you need someone to win a fight, you take him. So it could be a lurker, he could be an entry, he could be like a back of the pack player. But all in all, this was a stunning like series of performances to get his team into Pro League, and I'm really looking forward to seeing him at Pro League again. Well, not again, seeing him on LAN again. He's been at LAN before, but seeing him a big one like Pro League would be amazing.
Will you look forward? Would you watch the final at 2 a.m. against M80?
Oh hell no! Tomorrow's Monday, motherfuckers. If I'm staying up all night, I'll be watching the NBA finals. But I'm not going to do that either.
2 a.m. best of 5, 4 maps at most. Ooh, all right.
Yeah, no, yeah.
Cool.
Sorry,
we've talked about Jayba before. He's a cool player. Like you say, maybe not carrying NA on his own. I think they have a lot of riflers, so I think if you wanted to find a player who could carry the NA scene on his own, it would have to be an opper. Maybe.
Yeah, there's a lot of really mid riflers. Like he's the best of them that aren't
Absolutely.
already in tier 1, and by a long shot. But still, like he's not like gonna break the fucking game. He's basically not Donk. And if that's the worst thing I can say about him, that should tell you how good he is. Like he's not Donk.
Yeah. So we, like I said, we talked about him before. He's a cool player, and he is gonna do something in the future. Like he is gonna be at some point probably on the best team in North America. If we're gonna be honest, at some point he is gonna be on the best team in North America, and that's pretty cool. If everything goes well for him. So good pick. I've gone for r1nkle, which I think is me maybe being wrong again, because another worry that I had about this NIP roster, which so far has gone unwarranted, was that when you cut head trick and you sign another tier 2 opper, another inexperienced young tier 2 opper that you need to develop, you take a big risk, and it's basically like 2 steps backwards, 0 steps forward, because you're just back to square one. You could have just carried on with head trick. r1nkle has proven that wrong so far. In Yalla Compass, he is the top rated player. He doesn't look like he needs any development. He seems like a finished product already. And I think he's just played a great game. Like we could talk about his ratings. We talked about his opening attempts, I think, in the pre-show. Or actually, no, we talked about it now.
We talked about it on the actual recap of the event. Like his opening attempt rate, ridiculous at this event.
Yeah. So we talked about all of that, but there's also just personality-wise, I think he looks so different on the broadcast than what Headtrick did. Like this is the guy. This is the guy who's bringing energy into NIP. He's the guy yelling. He's the guy standing up. Like he's the guy absolutely bouncing around the stage whenever they win around. Like he's and I think that's really cool compared to Headtrick, who might more have been like the guy who was just like gaming, and then he was like, "Nice guys, we won around," and then it's like, yeah, that doesn't make a great player, but it's definitely, to me, that seems like a more complete player than what NIP might have been looking at in the past. And I think it's cool that they've sort of found someone like that. And I think maybe cheating a bit, putting a player who's already on a tier 1 team into this prospect of the week category, but it's still early days, so I might as well do it now rather than later. So
yeah,
cool.
Yeah, it's probably your last chance to do it.
Yeah, win the final tomorrow, guys, or today. I'll be rooting for r1nkle, to be honest.
That's fair enough. Yeah, no, I had the same reservations initially. Just signing another kid AWPer. It's like I as much as I liked him, I was like, the way NIP are building this roster seems a bit oof to me. Like, I'm not sure about this one, buddy. Like, especially considering our problem with Headtrick for so long in the analytics side of the scene is he's just too passive, baiting, blah blah blah. Then you bring in Alex and IGL, whose AWPers have a lot of the time not been particularly assertive on T sides, and who've used a lot of util and not done too much else. Like, there's been a big complaint, especially during some Pious days. Turns out a lot of that might have just been those individuals in those moments, because at this event, r1nkle's been very different. Like he's been complete opposite of that. So
correct me if I'm wrong, but I think one of the reasons they gave for picking up Alex was specifically that he was good with oppers historically. And then you look at his past oppers, and he was like, yeah, he would have done great with head trick, but he like that's not really what they need. They need someone more assertive. That might just have been, maybe he was just great with oppers in general. Like it wasn't anything to do with how he calls with the oppers. Like he's just, I don't fucking know, whatever the fuck. It's great that they managed to make r1nkle work, and I think he's doing a great job. And I'm excited to see what happens in the next season, really, because we're going into the player break soon. So
yeah,
see you guys in August.
yeah, so yeah. Next week's episode, by the way, we're gonna have to figure out our logistics because I am busy all weekend because I have tickets to the Blast Spring final, and
I'm busy all weekend. I have tickets to ESL Jönköping.
So yeah, it's gonna be it might be a Monday recording and release. So watch out for that. It's probably not.
Yeah, I'm just gonna say right now, I'm gonna be on a bus all day on Monday, so it's gonna be a Tuesday episode in that case.
God damn. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Might also have to do a double decker 2-weeker if things
Could
work
be.
out that poorly. But
yeah,
no,
it could be.
Watch out for that one. Remember members. They get special privileges. They're better than you. So become one today. And yeah, if you made it this far, you're my hero. We'll see you on the next one. Goodbye.